Meghan Markle's father Thomas has given countless interviews trying to reach out to her so they can reunite, but apparently Meghan is not going to let him see his grandchildren. I've received some questions about similar situations, especially from grandparents who wonder what did they do to receive this kind of treatment? Did I spoil my child? Didn't I give them enough time? Why is my son or daughter treating me like that? And even if every case is different, there are certain signals on Thomas Markle's interviews that can help you better understand parent and children dynamics when children are spoiled and narcissism is involved. Welcome back, my Battle Language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Battle Language guy, and it would be great if you join us by just liking this video, subscribing, and hitting that bell. Let's get down to it. It's interesting that Thomas does not hesitate to say statements such as this one.
Do you think they're happy, Thomas?
Money isn't everything, but the book he's writing should be not finding freedom, it should be finding money. That's all they seem to care about right now.
Well, there's a contradicting signal in that single shoulder shrug. That gesture usually means that the person doesn't really mean what they are saying, or that they are not being totally honest. What it could mean is something really common in parents and grandparents in that same situation. They constantly ask themselves if it was something that they did or they didn't do. But every relationship is a two-way street, so what about Meghan's point of view? The most straightforward way to assess this situation is going back to what Meghan said in the past about her father. And a lot of those interactions and memories were written down in her former blog, The Tig. There's a post about Father's Day in June 2014 that honestly, it deserves its own analysis, but I'm going to take a couple lines as an example of their relationship. He religiously took me to dance and tap classes on Saturday mornings after working 75 plus hours a week as a lighting director. The blood, sweat and tears this man invested in my future so I could grow up to have so much. He put gas on my car when I went to auditions trying to make it as an actress. He is the person who believed in this grand dream of mine well before I could even see it as a possibility. Well, that was more than a couple, but you get the idea of what Meghan thought about her father and shared publicly on her blog with absolutely no coercion from anyone. So you can imagine Thomas' confusion trying to understand why did Meghan change? And the fact that he thinks that Meghan actually changed, that she was not like this before, is critical for reasons you're about to understand. There is a question for you. What if Thomas was not aware that his daughter was a narcissist or a liar? That is important to define because some parents and grandparents claim that their children were not evil or liars or anything until that lying or those passive-aggressive attacks turn against them. I mean, against their own parents and grandparents. This could sound confusing, but it becomes much more clear with headlines like this. Meghan Markle's dad Thomas claims she's been lying for years and she changed since meeting Harry in new interview. This is something beyond body language and enters the realm of human behavior patterns. And learning to identify these patterns helps you a lot to understand human nature. By the way, I suggest that you download my 100 body language tips right in the description of this video. Thomas Markle has been, in one way or another, blaming Harry for Meghan's behavior change. That's a suggestion that the event of meeting Harry was the problem. Now try to isolate that statement. Thomas says that Meghan wasn't like that she changed, and he claims that he hasn't done anything to deserve this. So he's blaming the connection with Harry. Maybe not Harry directly or personally, but the fact that Harry exists in Meghan's circle. Thomas Markle is trying to put the blame on an external actor. That's a form of playing the victim. That's a way of saying that my daughter really is not that responsible for her mysterious change. And certainly there's nothing that I did that could trigger that change. It's like having Meghan face to face and telling her, I know you've changed, but I know it's not your fault. In all those records about how Thomas Markle raising Meghan, there are people claiming that he was just spoiling her. But a person is not spoiled because they have everything. There are many people that have all they need all the opportunities in life and do not grow spoiled or entitled. So what's the difference? The spoiling comes from a lack of responsibility and ownership of your actions. You can give everything to your son or daughter as long as you make sure that they understand the scope of their responsibility in regards to that privilege. In other words, with great power or great opportunities comes great responsibility. But if we got so much of a suggestion that Thomas targets the responsibility of Meghan's change in Harry, you can just wonder how many times he did something similar since she was a child. It was not your fault, it was the teacher or that school friend that is jealous of you, or your boyfriend, or the neighbors, or someone else. That's how you create entitlement, by giving the privilege but not teaching responsibility. And a child spoiled today might think tomorrow that the world owes so much to them that it's just their right to go and take it, whatever the cost. Even if it means crafting a story about struggle and victimhood. I have outlined before all the narcissistic traits that Meghan has, but so far I hadn't connected that with the relationship with her father. And what I'm about to tell you is a perfect tool to unmask most narcissists, because when you apply it, their mask just drops immediately. It's like this. When she wrote her open letter to Congress, she tried to paint herself as a victim, as someone who struggled since she was very young and she lived in a struggling household. Something that was disproven less than 24 hours later thanks to all the records that she herself had made both in her blog and her Instagram and various interviews. But she really tried to plant the idea that she came from a financially struggling background. And that's the idea behind playing a victim. Narcissists can use all kinds of words, strategies, and tactics to fool you into believing their story. But the strongest signal that they're trying to fool you is how they paint their circumstances, both present or past, to suggest that the circumstances are unfair and overwhelming. Now, any human being can be exposed at any point of their lives to unfair and overwhelming circumstances. What the narcissist does differently is that they use it to blame on other people and specifically connect it into gaslighting you. Like, how you dare attack or point your finger at me? I am the victim of the system and you are part of the problem. Now Meghan is trying to paint herself as coming from a struggling background. What do you think would happen if she meets Thomas again face to face? He is the embodiment of everything that disproves all that she says about her past. And that made-up victimhood past is part of what she has designed as her personal brand. The struggling background, fighting the monarchy, the skin tone argument, everything. That's why her own father is an obstacle to her plans, to her endgame, whatever it might be. Parenthood is really easy to mess up. Thomas Markle sounds like he was a loving dad and gave his daughter the best education and opportunities in life. But he has to face the possibility that in this process he spoiled her, and that doesn't necessarily lead to a child ghosting their parents. But in this case, the father became an obstacle for the daughter's plans. And I could be wrong, but I don't think there's going to be any reconciliation soon. I'll be making more videos on their case because there are other angles that can help you understand your own family dynamics. If you want to support my channel and help me make more videos, all you have to do is like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss any of my body language analysis and tips. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas, and I'll see you soon.